Hi, I'm Jerry Portwood, the founding editor of the Queer Love Project, and I'm talking today with my co-editor, Michael Narkunsky, about one of his essays that we recently published, which is called A Pleasure to Have in Class. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Jerry.
So I guess I just wanted to start off, since this is our first time recording a podcast together. 6 months ago, I told you that I was going to start the Queer Love Project, and you jumped in right away and asked if you could work with me on it, which was great. So I wasn't doing it all by myself. Tell me a little bit about why doing this project together appealed to you.
Yeah, I think it made sense. It made sense in the sense of something was missing in the marketplace, we'll call it, or literary landscape, or whatever you want to say, as far as a modern love about queer stories. So right away that captured my attention. I think I'm always doing that anyway. I'm always writing in that vein anyway. And it's sort of my thing as far as my preoccupation, just the gay thing and the love thing and the how did this all fit together in this horrible world we live in thing, and how do we make things happen and make ourselves happy in this, sort of setback in a way. It shouldn't be feeling that way, but it often does. And when you're growing up, that's how it feels, at least to me, and I think to a lot of people.
I loved one of the first things you said when you were helping promote it to people is that it was hornier than Modern Love, but maybe a little sweeter than Boy Slut, Zachary Zane's Substack. And that I've been using that ever since. So hopefully people get that.
Yeah, I think a big part of being queer is sex. And I think also it can be overly prioritized in writing, or vastly under-prioritized. Even with my book, I'm oh, it's like David Sedaris, but there's actual sense of a sexual being. Not that he's totally not, but
It
sometimes
often can get neutered. Yeah.
Yeah, I think often, yeah, that's a good word. We get neutered, or neuter ourselves, or for the sake of a broader appeal.
So you are working on a memoir, actually you have written a memoir and are trying to publish it. And we have now published 2 individual essays that I believe are part of the memoir.
Correct.
So this one that you've read recently and that we recently published, it came after the first one, which was Brotherly Love, No Relation. So could you just briefly talk about that, why you wanted that to be your first piece that we published?
Yeah, so not that it's so strategic, but yeah, the first essay, I wanted to set the tone for our project in a certain way. It has a very core relationship, a very core issue in the relationship where I want a daddy, but I get a brother, and we end up staying together. He is my fiance now, so a happy ending and all that. So to me, that was the prototypical what we are kind of looking for as far as a contained story that explores love in its queer facets. This essay, I was going for to scratch another itch of queer love, which is maybe unrequited, maybe somewhat pre-gay in a way, pre-relationship driven. I'm a teenager in this. It's about a crush on a teacher. And I just thought it'd be a cute sort of Valentine's Day story. It fit the word count. A lot of my essays in my book tend to be a little bit longer. But this was a self-contained sort of okay, I went after this guy in some way, and this is what happened. His pile of books thrilled me. "Everybody take one," the teacher said as we all shuffled through the door. "And don't bother to put your name in it. You'll be returning them tomorrow, when you're done." It was the first day of junior year, and we'd heard about Mr. Bernaccio. His AP English was supposed to be challenging, quirky, and full of special projects, all specifically designed to make the magic of literature come alive. During the summer, though, I tried not to get my hopes up. Who needed another disappointment after forensics class, with its inherent promise of dissection and fieldwork turned out to be science word searches and quiet time? And don't forget Benjamin Franklin's second virtue, he smiled. Silence. I found myself noticing every detail. His stiff black polo with khaki pants, his furious chalkboard writing, his thick hair bobbing with every purposeful yet frenzied movement. You're loving this, aren't you? A longtime classmate whispered.
In this one, obviously, you're focusing on junior year, your AP English teacher. I remember after watching the English teacher on FX, somebody, I think even on Substack Notes, was talking about, like, why is it always the English teacher that queer kids, like, have their crushes on? And I was like, well, it's also the art teacher. It's also the foreign language teacher. It's any of these kind of places. But why do you think it is the English teachers often that appeal to us?
You know, English teachers, they're more sensitive usually. They're in the arts, like a gay boy would be. I think it's also like that the teacher is kind of outside the classroom of kids, like it's a separate entity. And as gay kids or queer kids, we're sort of feel separate, away from the pack, we can call it. And so I think there is some sort of maybe some kinship, or like, oh, now me and I watch too much David Attenborough, so I think of things in a very anthropological sense, where it's like, now looking back, where it was like, okay, we have all these unruly children, and I'm unsafe here, so let me find safety in, like, another refuge. I don't know, something like that. But yeah, and then I would also say just the aesthetics of the English teacher are great. That just, like, you know, and I mentioned this in the essay, just like how they're dressed and the way they carry themselves. And again, people in my class, at least in Staten Island in the 2000s, early 2000s, were not looking great, at least to me, with their puka shell necklaces or whatever. So it was not an option to have a crush on a fellow student.
I don't want to get too far down the road, but as you know, I actually did date a teacher in high school. He wasn't my English teacher, but he was an English teacher. He ended up being my sister's English teacher. So I definitely can relate. But that's another story for another time. So one of the things that you do reveal, and it's kind of a two-part question, because one is, I think people are always curious about people who write memoir, is when are you willing to let yourself be vulnerable, and when are you willing to reveal things that maybe are less savory about some of your actions, which is what makes a great personal essay. And you reveal, you know, that you kind of wriggled your way into being a babysitter, partly so that you could get closer to your teacher, but also you ended up kind of doing some things that were not the best, like, you didn't hack into his computer, but you found some information.
That's when I noticed a glow. I saw it out of the corner of my eye. His computer. I knew it wasn't right to go through people's things. I wasn't even that interested in snooping. I wasn't going to find gay porn in his browsing history. I knew how he felt about his wife and Angelina Jolie. Still, there was one specific item I was curious about that had been gnawing at me. All the administrators in the school talked about Mr. B's college recommendation letters, how they were the best, so thoughtful, thorough, and personal. But the school kept them blind, sending them straight to the admissions offices. Naturally, I obsessed over what he'd written about me. Was I possibly the greatest student he ever had? Was he in awe of my wit, my spark, my being? See something special in me I couldn't fathom? Whatever it was, I needed to know. So I went in. It was easy, no complicated password. I just found the desktop folder with all the letters and scrolled to Narkunsky, M. I bit the end of my tongue, opened it up, and read.
So tell me a little bit about that. Were you ever nervous? I mean, you know that people that you went to school with, even some of your former teachers, follow your writing, so.
Oh, okay. Well, yes, I was very nervous. So far, no one's come at me with, like, any sort of attack. I'm always, even when I publish something pretty neutral, I'm always very, like, who's gonna hate me? But nothing happens yet. But yes, this teacher still exists. He's still around. I haven't seen him on social media in a while, so I felt a little safer.
You changed his name.
I changed his name, although I think he's probably very identifiable in other ways. Unfortunately, I just didn't change a crazy amount. But I feel like, yes, like you said, memoir is about revealing, it's about sharing. And if you're gonna do it, you have to do it. You can't just sort of pretend like things didn't happen that did happen, that you didn't feel certain ways that you felt. But yeah, it's a vulnerable thing, and the best thing I can do, or how I do protect myself, is just being proud of what I wrote, standing behind what I wrote, and thinking it's accurately presenting what happened, at least for me. So that way I don't feel like, oh, I'm just getting revenge on someone, or I'm just trying to get, a piece published for no reason. Like,
You're not just mining your trauma.
Yeah, I'm not mining my trauma, yeah. Although that's essentially, what I do on a daily basis with writing. But it's not just that. Yeah, it's for people to read and sort of get something out of as well.
So there's a pivotal moment near the end of the essay where you learn that maybe your teacher doesn't care for you as much as you think about him, and that you feel like, you have this sort of heartbreak and disappointment because you read a college recommendation that is not really personalized and not really tailored to you. And, people will probably be surprised when they see that moment where you're like, oh.
Dear Sir or Madam, Mr. Catherine Chung is an excellent student. My vision blurred. Huh? I kept going. Mr. Catherine Chung works hard. Mr. Michael Chung is a dedicated worker. I saw generalizations everywhere, redundancies abounded, and it constantly said my name was Catherine Chung, sometimes mixed with my own in different configurations. I looked again at the file, then clicked some others, immediately noticing the template he used, how he simply changed names and found a couple extremely minor details for each student, although theirs were all correct. It also hit me. It'd been just past the time my apps were due. This must be what the schools received. I panicked. This was bad. Kind of funny, but bad. What could I do? I stared for a long time in the silent glow, until I finally X'd out the box and tried to forget what I saw.
Tell me what was worse, when you were worried you weren't going to get into college because he wrote you a bad recommendation, or not a great one, or when you realized that he wasn't in love with you the way you were in love with him?
Oh, yeah. Well, I knew he wasn't in love with me, but yeah, I knew, yes, it was a huge, and it took even reading over this piece more recently, or you talking about it to me, that I realized it was sort of a heartbreak. I probably wouldn't have put it in those terms myself. Yes, it was definitely a heartbreak. I didn't care about the college part probably at all, in a way, because I think I remember, even though I applied to colleges and I had certain hopes for certain colleges, it wasn't like some crazy, like you see these days, or even back then, where it's like, I really have to get into college, and I have to prepare, and I have to study for my SATs, and I have to do this, and I have to do that, and I have to get my extracurricular activities. Like, even though I was a nerd and I did excel in school and stuff, I didn't have that presence of mind at the time to be that way. So, because I don't know, I was just dealing with my gayness and my depression and my anxieties, and to me, college was just a thing that was going to happen, and I didn't have the wherewithal to like put a ton into it. So no, it wasn't so much about what the colleges would receive. It was definitely about the heartbreak of just not getting even a modicum, like I think I say in the essay, of affection or academic affection back. Even though, again, at the time, it wouldn't have totally registered as a heartbreak. I think it was even, I don't know, even deeper somehow. It was just like more formative.
Well, before we wrap things up, I wanted to talk about your penultimate line, which is pretty poignant. You say that no matter how much I desired, no matter how much I wanted, there was simply a limit on what a gay boy could hope for. Tell me more about that.
I think it's about reckoning with reality. When you're little and gay, you definitely have limits. You have limits on all kinds of things, not even just, who you can have a crush on. You have limits on like what music you're supposed to like or what style you're supposed to have. So I think when you're little, you're reckoning with like all these things and like testing the boundaries and appeasing the boundaries that other people place on you. So when I finally, at least in this case, sort of like had a big crush on someone and sort of let it be not known, but it was a little like, a little tiny bit public with certain classmates, and especially with my actions and how I was letting it manifest. I think that line about having a limit on what a gay boy can hope for just sort of was me at the time digesting the fact that you can take maybe 2 steps forward, but then, there's a step back that you have to take. And just, again, it's a process, and growing up gay is a huge process. And I think I was just sort of processing that even in the essay, even looking back and writing about it, I still debate like certain things about how those limits work and how they work in my current life and what I carried over. So it's not the most final stamp. It's not the kind of essay where it's like, and now today I am like this. I sort of keep it in the past in a sense, but at least I hope I show that like there's a limit, but then maybe there's something else coming later.
So, final question. First, tell us about the title and tell us about the memoir you've been working on, and how does this story and this essay relate to the others in that collection?
Well, the title, I go back and forth, but it's basically Bad Homo, or Bad Homos Have Macaroni Hearts. And like I said, even though heart is in the title, and it's all about heartbreak in certain respects, or disappointments, or a series of hurdles we have to jump over as gay people, that is kind of actually the whole point. Like, that's the whole point of the book, that we have to get through one thing, then another thing, then another thing, and then there's the gay thing, and then there's the gender thing, and then there's how your brain and how it processes these things, and then how other people are interacting with you, and it's not such a straight line. But at the same time, I do break it up into sort of 3 parts, which is this essay that we're talking about fits into obviously the early years of sort of being a baby gay and having this sort of initial gay anxiety and gay panic, and not in the traditional gay panic sense of defense, but a different kind of panic that we have, I think, often. And then the second part is more like the practical application. You have all these disappointments as a child and all these confusions, and then you sort of slowly start to come out. You're out now, and then what happens? Like, so that's the second part, just sort of experimenting, playing with it. And then the third part is sort of, at least in my memoir, it's called Gay Death, where you just sort of have to put to bed all those sort of things that you went through and sort of now find a way to integrate them into a more adult, healthier, hopefully, lifestyle where you're not so constantly confused, although you might be. I don't know. Again, it's a very much a process. My book isn't about one specific totally thing. It's just a bunch of these sort of stories, because to me, what I can do is I don't have a big academic background. I don't study gayness. I don't study love, but I've experienced it a lot. And there's sort of something in me that says you have to share these things. So that's all I'm trying to do, basically.
Nice. Well, I think that's what we're trying to do in general. So
yeah.
Good. Thanks, Michael, for joining me. And I hope everyone enjoys reading your story.
Thanks for having me. It's been great to be here.